First Contact. Supreme Commander Zex Kalor of the Krelax Dominion stood on the observation deck of his flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, gazing at the holographic display of the unremarkable yellow star and its third planet. His scaled skin rippled with anticipation as he ran a clawed hand over the bony ridge protruding from his skull, a sign of his elite warrior status among his kind. "Another primitive world ripe for harvesting," he rumbled, addressing the officers gathered behind him. "Tell me about these humans." Science Officer Meth Thorin stepped forward, her smaller frame and iridescent scales marking her as from the thinker caste of their species. "They are a bipedal mammalian species, Commander. No natural armor, minimal physical strength compared to Krelax standards, and possessing no natural weapons beyond blunt teeth and weak claws." "Their technology?" Zex Kalor inquired, mandibles clicking with interest. "Pre-FTL, though they've managed rudimentary spaceflight within their own system. Their weapons rely primarily on chemical propellants and primitive fission devices. Their most advanced fighters would be equivalent to our training vessels." The commander's eyes narrowed with pleasure. This would be an easy conquest for the galactic hegemony, the coalition of the 7 most powerful predator species in the known galaxy. The Krelax served as the hegemony's vanguard, the first wave sent to assess and begin subjugation of new worlds. "And what resources make this planet worth our attention?" he asked. "Water, Commander. More liquid water than we've seen on any habitable world. Additionally, the biodiversity is exceptional. Over 8 million distinct species. The genetic material alone would be invaluable to our bioweapons division." Zex Kalor chittered in approval. "Perfect. The Sovereign Council will be pleased. Prepare the fleet for direct approach. Standard intimidation formation." As the officers dispersed to carry out his orders, his second-in-command, Vraktor, approached. "Commander, shall we follow the hegemony protocol and transmit surrender terms before engaging?" The commander waved a dismissive claw. "Yes, yes. Follow protocol. Not that it matters. They'll either surrender immediately like most primitive species or resist briefly before we crush them. Either way, the outcome is inevitable." The Krelax fleet, 15 warships strong, moved toward Earth in a formation designed to maximize visual impact, their massive hulls reflecting the sun's light as they positioned themselves in high orbit over the planet's major population centers. "Transmitting the standard terms of surrender now, Commander," Communications Officer Silvex announced. Within minutes, a response came. The officers exchanged surprised glances as the signal was routed to the main view screen. A human female appeared, dressed in what appeared to be formal attire. Her face showed no sign of the terror that usually accompanied first contact with the Krelax. "Greetings, Commander of the approaching fleet. I am Secretary General Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Cooperative. We receive your transmission and recognize your presence in our system." Zex Kalor stepped forward, allowing his imposing figure to fill the transmission. "I am Supreme Commander Zex Kalor of the Krelax Dominion, representative of the galactic hegemony. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our territory. Accept our terms of surrender, and your species will be permitted to exist as a servant race. Resist, and you will face extinction." The human's expression remained calm. "Commander, we have no desire for conflict with your people or this hegemony. We propose an alternative. Diplomatic relations and cultural exchange. Earth has much to offer in terms of art, knowledge, and resources that could be shared through peaceful cooperation." Laughter erupted across the bridge. Zex Kalor's mandibles flared in amusement. "Your naive optimism is noted, human. However, the hegemony does not cooperate with prey species. You have 6 planetary rotations to lay down your weapons and prepare for our arrival. Use this time to instruct your population on proper subservience." Instead of fear, the human merely nodded thoughtfully. "We understand your position, Commander. However, I strongly urge you to reconsider. We would prefer to establish peaceful relations, but we are fully prepared to defend our world if necessary." The transmission ended, leaving an unusual silence on the bridge. Did the prey species just threaten us? Vraktor asked incredulously. Zexcalor's amusement faded. Scan their defensive capabilities. Now. Minutes later, the tactical display showed minimal orbital defenses, a few primitive satellites, a small space station, and what appeared to be rudimentary weapon platforms. As expected, Commander, Tactical Officer Grexnar reported. Their defenses are negligible. Yet something about the humans' demeanor bothered Zexcalor. In his 3 centuries of conquest, he had never seen a prey species respond with such composure to a Krelax ultimatum. Launch reconnaissance drones, he ordered. I want detailed scans of their military installations, power grids, and government centers, and monitor all their communications. For the next Earth Day, the Krelax observed with growing puzzlement as humans went about their business with remarkable normalcy. There was no mass panic, no emergency military mobilizations visible from orbit. The most notable change was an increase in civilian space traffic, primarily what appeared to be evacuation vessels heading to their moon base. They're behaving irrationally, Mev Thorin remarked. Either they don't understand the threat, or they have some plan, Zexcalor finished, his instincts as a predator sensing something amiss. What are our drones reporting? Minimal military activity, Commander. Some movement of naval vessels, but nothing that suggests a global defensive posture. The commander paced the bridge, his claws clicking against the metal floor. They're too calm. Something isn't right. His suspicions grew when, on the 3rd day, another transmission came from Earth. The Secretary General appeared again. Commander Zexcalor, as a gesture of goodwill, we have prepared a comprehensive database on human culture, language, and basic scientific knowledge. We are transmitting it now as a demonstration of our sincere desire for peaceful contact. Mev Thorin analyzed the incoming data stream. It appears to be a legitimate cultural and linguistic database, Commander. No detectable malware or weaponized code. Why would they give us information that could help us subjugate them more efficiently? Vraktor asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Zexcalor's eyes narrowed. They're playing some game. I will not be outsmarted by prey. He turned to his communications officer. Inform Earth that we reject their pathetic offering. The invasion proceeds as planned. In fact, his mandibles clicked in decision. Move the timetable forward. We attack at the next planetary dawn over their most populous continent. As preparations for the invasion began, Mev Thorin approached the commander privately. Sir, I've been analyzing the human database they sent. There's something unusual about their history. Explain. Most species we encounter evolved within stable ecological niches, with predictable evolutionary paths. Humans didn't. Their planet experienced multiple extinction-level events during their evolution. Their ancestors survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, meteor impacts. Your point, science officer. They are the only known sentient species to evolve while constantly facing extinction, Commander. Their entire history is one of adaptation to catastrophe. Zexcalor dismissed her concerns with a wave. All the more reason they'll recognize the futility of resistance. Begin the invasion. The first wave of Krelax dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere, targeting major cities on the continent called North America. The bridge crew watched the tactical displays with anticipation, expecting the usual scenes of chaos and immediate capitulation that accompanied most invasions. Instead, the first dropship exploded midair. Then another, and another. Zexcalor leaned forward in shock as the tactical display showed dropship after dropship being intercepted by primitive but effective missile systems that hadn't appeared on their scans. What is happening? He demanded. Commander, Tactical Officer Grexnar's voice held disbelief. The humans have concealed defensive systems in civilian structures. They're using camouflage technology. Impossible. Their technological level shouldn't allow for Sir, the communications officer interrupted. Incoming transmission from Earth. The view screen activated to show not the Secretary General, but a different human, male, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. This is General Marcus Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Your forces are currently being engaged by our preliminary defensive systems. This is your final opportunity to withdraw from Earth space. There will not be another warning. As the transmission ended, alarm klaxons blared across the inevitable conquest. Multiple launches detected from the planet's surface, shouted Grexnar. Thousands of small objects rising on ballistic trajectories. Zexcalor watched in disbelief as the tactical display lit up with countless signatures, far more than their intelligence had indicated was possible. Raise shields. Prepare point defense systems. But it was already becoming clear that the Krelax had gravely miscalculated. The human weapons were not the primitive nuclear missiles they had expected, but something far more sophisticated. Some seemed to change course mid-flight, others split into unexpected resistance. The Krelax had never experienced anything like it. 3 days into what was supposed to be a routine conquest, Supreme Commander Zexcalor found himself in the unthinkable position of ordering a tactical retreat. 7 of his 15 warships had sustained significant damage from Earth's unexpectedly sophisticated missile barrage. 2 had been completely disabled, their crews evacuated to the remaining vessels. "I want answers," he snarled, pacing the command center of the inevitable conquest. How did we miss their true defensive capabilities? Science officer, Methorin's scales had dulled from stress as she brought up holographic displays of the human weapons they'd managed to analyze. They concealed them, Commander. Their defensive systems were integrated into civilian structures or hidden underground. And these missiles? She zoomed in on the schematics. They're using a targeting system unlike anything we've encountered. Not as advanced as ours technologically, but innovative in ways we didn't anticipate. They tricked us, Vraktor growled, mandibles clicking in agitation. Let us see what we expected to see. Zexcalor slammed a clawed fist onto the tactical display. Unacceptable. They are prey. They should have cowered before our might. There's more, Commander. Methorin continued hesitantly. I've completed the historical analysis from their database. These humans, they've been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. Their weapons development has been driven by constant warfare among their own kind. The commander paused, considering this. You're saying they've evolved as warriors? Not exactly. They've evolved as survivors. And part of that survival involved becoming extremely effective at killing each other. They've developed thousands of different ways to fight, adapted to every terrain and condition on their planet. They call it the art of war. Silence fell over the command center as the implications sank in. We will not be defeated by primitives, Zexcalor finally declared. Prepare a ground invasion. Their orbital defenses may have surprised us, but no prey species can match the Krelax in direct combat. Despite the concerns of his officers, Zexcalor ordered landing operations to begin. The target, a region called Australia, selected for its relatively isolated position and lower population density, it would serve as a beachhead from which the Krelax could expand their control. 5,000 Krelax warriors descended on the Australian continent, expecting to establish dominance through their superior strength, natural armor, and advanced weaponry. Each Krelax soldier stood nearly 8 feet tall, with exoskeletal plating that could deflect most projectiles, and carried energy weapons capable of vaporizing organic matter instantly. The first reports from the ground forces were confident, even triumphant. Human military units were retreating, apparently unable to stand against the might of Krelax warriors. Cities were evacuated, leaving vast urban areas seemingly abandoned. They flee before us, Commander, Vraktor reported with satisfaction. The ground commander reports minimal resistance. But Zexcalor's unease grew as the hours passed. Too easy, he muttered. Where is their military? Their planetary defense forces? The answer came in the dead of night. The first forward operating base established by the Krelax simply went silent. Then another. By dawn, nearly a third of the landing force had ceased communication. Surveillance drones dispatched to investigate showed scenes that stunned the Krelax command staff. Their warriors, elite predators bred for combat, had been systematically eliminated by small teams of humans using tactics the Krelax had never encountered. "They're not engaging us directly," Tactical Officer Grex Nar observed with professional dismay. "They're using something they call guerrilla warfare, striking fast and disappearing, setting traps, attacking supply lines rather than forces. Cowards' tactics," Vraktor spat. "Effective tactics," Mev Thorin corrected quietly. "They're neutralizing our technological advantages by choosing when and where to fight. And look at this." She brought up footage of human soldiers wearing camouflage that almost perfectly matched their surroundings. "They've developed adaptive coloration like prey species on their world. They're using their evolutionary understanding against us." Zex Kalor watched the footage with growing rage as a team of just 4 humans systematically eliminated a Krelax patrol of 12 warriors. The humans moved with practiced precision, using the environment to mask their approach, attacking with weapons specifically designed to penetrate Krelax armor at its weak points. "How do they know our vulnerabilities?" he demanded. "We've never encountered them before." Mev Thorin hesitated before answering. "I believe they studied the wreckage of our dropships, Commander. In a matter of days, they reverse-engineered enough of our technology to identify weaknesses in our armor and shields. They're adaptable, remarkably so." The situation deteriorated rapidly from there. Within a week, the ground invasion force had lost over 60% of its strength. The remaining Krelax warriors were forced into defensive positions, surrounded by an enemy they could rarely see before it struck. And then came the weather. "What do you mean, weather weapons?" Zex Kalor demanded, staring at the tactical display showing a massive storm system moving toward the main Krelax encampment. "Not weapons exactly, Commander," Mev Thorin explained. "But they've timed their attacks to coincide with natural weather patterns that interfere with our sensors and communication. This approaching system will reduce visibility to near zero and disrupt our energy shields." As if on cue, the tactical display flickered as the storm made landfall. Reports from the ground became fragmented, desperate. Human forces were attacking from multiple directions simultaneously, using the cover of the storm to close distance and engage in close combat, where the Krelax's ranged energy weapons became less effective. Vraktor, watching the devastation unfold, turned to the commander. "We must withdraw the ground forces. This is not a battle we can win with current resources." For the first time in his military career, Zex Kalor was forced to agree. "Order all remaining ground forces to return to the ships. We need to regroup and reassess." As the battered remnants of the invasion force retreated to orbit, the command staff of the inevitable conquest gathered for an emergency council. "How?" Zex Kalor demanded of no one in particular. "How does a pre-FTL species manage to repel the might of the Krelax Dominion?" Mev Thorin, who had continued analyzing human communications and tactics throughout the failed invasion, spoke up. "They fight differently, Commander. Not just from us, but from any species we've encountered. Most sentient races evolve specialized combat techniques suited to their biology and environment. Humans didn't." "Explain," Vraktor demanded. "They've developed combat methods from every ecological niche on their planet. They can fight like pack predators or solitary ambush hunters. They use camouflage like prey species. They employ venom and traps like their planet's arthropods. They've studied every successful survival strategy their world has produced and adapted it for warfare. A species of warrior scientists," Grex Nar observed with reluctant admiration. "And engineers," Mev Thorin added. "They're already developing countermeasures to our technology based on the limited samples they've obtained. At this rate, within weeks they cooled." A proximity alarm cut her off. The tactical display shifted to show dozens of new contacts approaching the Krelax fleet. "Reinforcements?" Zex Kalor asked hopefully. "No, Commander," Grexnar replied, his voice tight with tension. "They're coming from Earth. The humans have launched their own ships." The bridge crew watched in disbelief as the tactical display showed the approaching fleet, not the primitive spacecraft they had expected, but vessels clearly designed for warfare. Smaller than Krelax warships, but faster and more maneuverable. "They've had space combat capability all along," Vraktor realized. "They concealed it, just like their ground defenses." "Not just concealed," Medthorin said, analyzing the incoming data. "These ships, they're new. The design signatures match nothing in their orbital infrastructure. They built these in response to our arrival." "Impossible," Zex Kalor breathed. "No species could design and construct a war fleet in less than 2 weeks." "They didn't build them from scratch," Medthorin explained, her voice filled with amazement. "They converted existing spacecraft, orbital construction platforms, transport vessels, even their primitive space station, into combat vessels. They've repurposed their civilian infrastructure for war." As the human fleet closed in, adopting a formation that effectively surrounded the remaining Krelax ships, a transmission came through on all frequencies. The view screen showed General Chen again, now aboard what appeared to be a command vessel. "Commander Zex Kalor, your invasion has failed. Your ground forces have been defeated. You are outmaneuvered and outgunned. Surrender your vessels, or we will be forced to destroy them." Zex Kalor, Supreme Commander of the Krelax Dominion, apex predator and veteran of 100 conquests, found himself speechless for the first time in his life. "You leave me no choice," he finally responded. "I invoke the Hegemony War Protocol. Be warned, humans. The full might of the 7 most powerful species in the galaxy will descend upon your world. What you have faced so far is nothing compared to what is coming." General Chen's expression remained impassive. "We'll be ready, Commander. We always have been." As the Krelax fleet engaged emergency FTL to retreat from the Sol system, Zex Kalor could not shake the feeling that they had awakened something ancient and terrible, a species that had been fighting for its survival since before it could speak, and had never forgotten how. The counter-offensive. 6 months after the Krelax retreat, Earth had transformed. The orbital shipyards that once constructed scientific vessels and habitation modules now produced warships at an unprecedented rate. Factories that had manufactured consumer goods were retooled for weapons production. Scientific research that had focused on exploration and discovery was redirected toward military applications. Humanity, faced with an existential threat, had united in a way previously thought impossible. Former adversaries became allies, sharing technology, resources, and intelligence in preparation for the hegemony's return. And return they did. The Galactic Hegemony War Fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system with overwhelming force, over 100 capital ships representing all 7 predator species that formed the coalition. Leading them was High Admiral Vex Morda of the Krelax, elder brother to the disgraced Zex Kalor, who had been stripped of rank after his failure. "So this is the troublesome little world," Vex Morda remarked, studying the tactical display showing the yellow star and its planets. "It looks even more insignificant than I expected." Beside him stood representatives from the other hegemony species, the insectoid Tizik, the reptilian Sarek, the avian Krelva, and others, each an apex predator from their homeworld, each accustomed to dominance and victory. "Do not underestimate them as your brother did," cautioned Ejiste of the Tizik, mandibles clicking. "These humans have proven resourceful. My brother was weak and unprepared." Vex Morda dismissed. "We are neither. Our fleet possesses firepower sufficient to reduce their entire civilization to ash." The massive war fleet advanced cautiously toward Earth, expecting resistance similar to what had repelled the first invasion. Instead, they encountered nothing. No defensive platforms, no interceptor vessels, not even early warning beacons. "This is suspicious," noted Garshal of the Sorek, reptilian eyes narrowing. Where are their defenses? Perhaps they exhausted their resources defeating the First Fleet, suggested another admiral. Or they've hidden their population in underground shelters. Vex Morda was not convinced. Deploy long-range scanners, full spectrum analysis of the entire system. The results were puzzling. Earth itself showed signs of ongoing civilization. Cities still illuminated, energy signatures consistent with industrial activity. But no major military mobilization was detected. The moon base had been expanded significantly, but appeared to be primarily civilian in nature. They can't possibly believe they can resist us without military preparations, Vex Morda mused. What game are they playing? As the fleet passed the orbit of Mars, they received their answer. The apparently empty space around them suddenly came alive with energy signatures as thousands of previously undetectable devices activated simultaneously. Before the Hegemony fleet could react, they found themselves surrounded by a three-dimensional grid of small, autonomous platforms. Stealth technology, cried the tactical officer. The entire system is mined with cloaked devices. The platforms didn't fire conventional weapons as expected. Instead, they emitted precisely calibrated energy pulses that interacted with the Hegemony ship's shields in unexpected ways, not trying to overwhelm them with brute force, but exploiting specific resonance frequencies that caused shield harmonics to destabilize. Clever, HFY of the Tezek admitted as his ship's systems began malfunctioning. They've turned our own shield technology against us. Target those platforms and destroy them, Vex Morda ordered. But the small devices proved nearly impossible to hit. They employed some form of quantum displacement, appearing to be where they weren't and not where they were. As the Hegemony fleet struggled with this first defensive layer, the main human fleet finally revealed itself, emerging from hiding positions behind Earth's moon and in the shadow of Mars. But instead of engaging directly, the human vessels maintained distance, launching swarms of unmanned drones. Analysis of drone composition, reported the science officer on Vex Morda's flagship. They appear to be. Wait, this can't be right. Report, demanded the admiral. The drones contain biological components. Admiral. Specifically, synthesized pheromones from all 7 Hegemony species. Too late, the predators realized the human strategy. The drones released carefully engineered chemical compounds into the life support systems of the Hegemony vessels, compounds that triggered deep, instinctual responses in each species, rage in some, fear in others, confusion in the rest. They're weaponizing our own biology, gasped Garshal as the Sorek ships began turning on their allies, their crews driven to territorial frenzy by synthetic markers their instincts recognized as threats from rival clutches. Within hours, the carefully coordinated Hegemony fleet had devolved into chaos. Ships fired on each other, commanders could no longer trust their own instincts, and the chain of command collapsed. Through it all, the human fleet maintained its distance, methodically targeting any ships that attempted to escape the confusion. They didn't need to destroy the Hegemony fleet, merely contain it while it tore itself apart. On the bridge of his flagship, now one of the few vessels still under rational control, High Admiral Vex Morda watched in horror as the greatest armada ever assembled disintegrated without the humans firing a single conventional shot. How? He demanded of his science officer. How did they know our biological weaknesses so precisely? The pheromone combinations, the instinctual triggers, these are closely guarded secrets. The database, the science officer realized. The cultural exchange database they sent to your brother's fleet. It wasn't just language and art. They were watching how we reacted to different information, learning our cognitive patterns, our emotional responses. They've been studying us as thoroughly as we should have been studying them. A transmission cut through the chaos on all frequencies. On screen appeared not a military officer, but the original human they had communicated with, Secretary General Elena Vasquez. Admiral Vex Morda, your fleet is neutralized. Your coalition is in disarray. Now, at last, Are you ready to discuss diplomatic relations? Vex Morta's mandibles clicked in fury. This is not diplomacy. This is treachery. No, Admiral. This is adaptation. You came to our world as predators, so we responded accordingly. We gave you the opportunity for peaceful contact, and you chose war. We merely ensured it would be a short one. The hegemony will never accept defeat at the hands of prey. Vex Morta hissed. The human's expression showed something new, not fear or anger, but something like pity. That's where you're wrong, Admiral. We were never prey. On our world, we were the apex predators, the species that hunted all others to the brink of extinction. The difference is, we evolved beyond that limitation. We learned to become more than just killers. We developed art, philosophy, cooperation. We chose a different path. She leaned forward. Your hegemony sees the galaxy as divided into predators and prey. We see potential allies and mutual benefit. That perspective is our greatest weapon, and it's one you cannot counter with ships and guns. As Vex Morta struggled to comprehend this worldview so alien to hegemony thinking, his tactical officer reported more bad news. Admiral, we're detecting new energy signatures throughout the system, thousands of them, emerging from concealment. The tactical display showed what appeared to be weapons platforms positioned throughout the Sol system, not just around Earth, but Jupiter, Saturn, even the distant Kuiper Belt. Earth had not just defended its home planet, it had fortified the entire system. This was never going to be a conquest, Vasquez continued. It was always going to be a lesson. The question is, has the hegemony learned it yet? A new galactic order. 1 year after the Battle of Sol, as it came to be known throughout the galaxy, the Great Hall of the Hegemony Council on the neutral space station Concordia hosted an unprecedented gathering. For the first time in the hegemony's 1,000-year history, representatives of a prey species stood before the assembled leaders of the 7 predator civilizations. The human delegation, led by Secretary General Elena Vasquez, faced the semicircle of alien leaders with the quiet confidence that had so confounded the Krelax during first contact. We thank the Hegemony Council for agreeing to these historic negotiations, Vasquez began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. Earth comes seeking neither revenge nor subjugation, but a new relationship based on mutual respect and cooperation. Arch-Dominator Zealvax of the Krelax, supreme leader of the hegemony, leaned forward on his elevated throne. His ancient scales bore the scars of countless battles, his eyes the cold calculation of a lifelong predator. Respect is earned through strength, he rumbled. This, at least, your species has demonstrated. But cooperation. The hegemony does not cooperate with lesser species. We conquer. We rule. That is the natural order. Natural to you, perhaps, Vasquez replied evenly. But nature takes many forms across the galaxy. On Earth, we discovered that cooperation often yields greater benefits than competition. Symbiosis frequently proves more advantageous than predation. Archmatriarch Kist of the Tzic chittered skeptically. Pretty philosophy from a species that just destroyed half our combined fleets. A human military officer stepped forward, General Marcus Chen, now bearing the title of Earth Defense Force Commander. We did not destroy your fleets, he corrected. We neutralized them with minimal casualties. Had destruction been our goal, none of your ships would have returned home. This statement caused a stir among the council. It was true. Despite the complete tactical victory, humans had gone to extraordinary lengths to disable rather than destroy enemy vessels, even at greater risk to themselves. Why? Demanded the Sauric representative. Why show restraint when you held overwhelming advantage? Because we've learned something your civilizations haven't yet, replied Vasquez. The true measure of power isn't the ability to destroy, but the choice not to, even when you can. We fought to defend our world, not to annihilate yours. She gestured to an aide, who activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed various scenes from Earth, cities rebuilding, but also cultural exhibitions, scientific laboratories, agricultural projects. We propose a new relationship between Earth and the hegemony, not one of ruler and subject, but of independent powers with distinct contributions. Your civilizations have mastered interstellar travel, developed technologies we're still discovering, mapped vast regions of the galaxy. We offer different strengths. The display shifted to show human innovations, adaptive technologies, environmental engineering, medical advancements. Humans evolved on a world of constant change and challenge. We survived not by becoming the strongest or fastest, but by adapting to any circumstance. Where your species specialized, we generalized. Where you perfected singular approaches, we explored thousands of alternatives. Science Minister Thielva of the Krulva, whose avian features could not hide her intellectual curiosity, leaned forward. Your medical technology. It shows approaches we've never considered. And these environmental adaptation systems would be invaluable on marginal worlds. Precisely. Vasquez nodded. What we propose is an exchange. Knowledge, technology, cultural understanding, to mutual benefit. Arch-Dominator Zielvax's voice cut through the growing murmurs of interest. And if we refuse? If we choose instead to gather our forces and return to Earth with even greater numbers? General Chen stepped forward again, his expression grave. Then you would discover what humans are truly capable of when fighting for survival. What you've seen of our defensive capabilities represents only a fraction of our potential. We developed those countermeasures in months, with limited understanding of your technology. He activated a different holographic display, showing technical schematics that caused the hegemony's military advisors to hiss in alarm. Since repelling your fleet, we've reverse-engineered much of your technology. We've improved upon some of it. Given more time, who knows what else we might develop? The implied threat hung in the air, made all the more potent by the humans' demonstrated capabilities. Vasquez raised a hand, softening the moment. But that is not the path we wish to take. Earth has seen enough war in its history. We would rather be allies than enemies. For several long moments, the council chamber remained silent as the predator species considered this unprecedented situation. Finally, Arch-Dominator Zielvax spoke. In 1,000 years of hegemony rule, no species has ever forced us to negotiate as equals. That you have done so proves there is something unusual about humans, something worthy of further study. He straightened to his full impressive height. I propose a probationary period. Earth will be granted autonomous status. Neither subject nor member of the Hegem